Thank you so much, Zara. I appreciate that kind introduction, and I even appreciated getting a couple of nuggets from that last panel. Like she said, my name is Quinn Conyers, and I have the honor, the privilege, and the pleasure to kick off this panel. And let me tell you, if you have been liking and loving what you've been hearing so far, I promise you, who we have on this next panel will rock your world and blow your mind. So, we are going to have a conversation all about innovate and elevate, engage, retain, succeed, the path to peak performance. And that's exactly what we're about to talk about right now. We have a few powerhouse panelists who are going to join us. I'm going to introduce them, and then we are going to kick off this conversation. So if you are excited to hear from them, I want you to go ahead and just type "I'm ready" in the comments, and we're going to go ahead and get this party started. As you can see on the screen, there is some information about Power to Fly's code of conduct. So make sure that you are mindful and cognizant of that. And the next couple of screens that you'll see is our lovely panelist, as well as some awesome and amazing supporters who are just making sure that the Power to Fly team is really amplifying and illuminating how we work and how we do things and how organizations are attracting and hiring and retaining diverse top talent. So you can see that on the screen, but don't take my word for it. We're going to go a little bit beyond the stats. We're going to go a little bit beyond the statistics and things like that. You're going to hear from people who are really, really intentional about doing this work. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right in. Up first for this awesome and amazing panel discussion, we have Jason Putnam, and he is the Chief Revenue Officer at Plum. As you can see, he is an award-winning sales leader. He oversees Plum strategy, driving revenue generation initiatives and expanding into new markets to meet customer demand. Now, since joining Plum in December of 2021, Jason has helped drive substantial growth in the company's pipeline and client base, which under his guidance jumped 20% in 6 short months. Prior to Plum, Jason has served as Senior Vice President and General Manager for the Enterprise Business Unit of PandoLogic. Let's go ahead and give Jason a welcome. All right. Welcome, welcome, Jason. All right. Joining Jason on this awesome and amazing panel is the one and only Kylie Piper. Now, Kylie is the lead people partner at 15Five. She is a seasoned HR and people leader. She's currently serving as lead people partner at 15Five with a deep focus on human-centered leadership. She collaborates closely with senior business leaders to drive higher employee engagement, performance manager effectiveness, and retention. Now, prior to joining 15Five, Kylie held leadership roles at XtraCard, Canvas, and Credit Karma, where she optimized HR processes and advanced diversity hiring efforts. Let's give Kylie a warm welcome. All right. Also, too, joining Kylie and Jason, we have the sensational Sienna J. Brown, and she is the head of growth at Power to Fly and probably a familiar face to many of you. Now, Sienna is the head of growth at Power to Fly. Her mission is to build a new wave of leadership focused on inclusion and intention in the workplace so that every individual has an equal opportunity to reach their full potential. Her thought leadership around topics related to inclusion, leadership, and cross-cultural understanding has been highlighted by NPR, CNN, TEDx, Insider, USA Today, and more. Let's welcome Sienna to the stage. I want to make sure that you understand that even though we're virtual, I still want you to get excited and ready because they have so much information that is really going to just elevate the way you think about workplace and engaging and innovation. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to give you kind of how this panel conversation is going to go. Not only am I going to make sure that Jason, Sienna, and Kylie's voices are heard, if at any time during this conversation you have an aha moment or you have a question, I want you to go ahead and pop that in the chat and I will be integrating your questions throughout this conversation. And that's what I want you to know. So here's what you need to understand. We're going to do this kind of 2 different ways. I have some questions that I would like for everyone on the panel to answer. And then I'm going to do some questions, what I call popcorn style. These are questions that I know that you would like to be answered. I'm going to throw them out there. And if Jason or Sienna or Kylie wants to answer it, they can. But just know I'll be integrating your questions as well. So let's go ahead and get started with this very first question because I want to make sure that you understand that you're going to learn a few things during this conversation. Number one, how building high performance teams is needed and necessary, how linking retention and engagement and upskilling. Also, too, how tailored solutions for specific challenges are going to be part of your superpower, and also how to measure things for success because there are so many things that you could use during the conversation that we're going to have today. And also, this webinar is eligible for SHRM credits. So I'm going to start off with a question for all, meaning I want Sienna, I want Jason, and I want Kylie's 2 cents, right? So I want to start with you, Sienna. What are some of the key factors in building high performance teams that also prioritize employee well being, especially because many of us are still in a hybrid or remote work setting? Sienna, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, first of all, Quinn, I love your energy. It's 8 p.m. over where I'm at in Spain, and I'm just like, yes, wake me up. I love it. So I'm really excited to dive into this topic just because I think it's something that's extremely timely, right? How do we have high performing teams while also we might have leaner teams than what we had 2 years ago, or we also might have different opportunities in our team, especially for individuals who have been here for a little bit longer. And I think I would break it down to three different things. And that first thing is really understanding your team and their needs, right? If you were listening to our previous session, we were talking a lot about having a people first mentality. And I think that that's something that's really important to understand. High performing for one person might look different than what high performing for a different person looks like. And so when you're really able to take the time to understand the individuals and their needs on your team, it will help you also be able to understand what is the structure that you need to be able to create to elevate everyone to have what you consider high performing. And then speaking of that, what does high performing actually mean, right? So by having clear communication and also having a clear goal setting system and having that with the sentiment of transparency really allows for individuals to not just feel as if you're creating the definition of high performing and everyone needs to sprint to that finish line, but instead you're co-creating what does that look like, right? Is that efficiency? Is that being able to lean in and saying that we're being more innovative? And so when you're creating those goals, thinking through that in a collaborative way. And the last thing that I'll say to just tie this to a sentiment of inclusion as well as well-being is really thinking about what does flexibility and autonomy look like, especially if you are in a remote work setting or a hybrid setting, right? So for me personally, it's 8 p.m. where I'm at because I'm located in Spain. I'm originally from New York. I've been here and working remotely actually for the last decade, right? And so when we really think about what does flexibility and autonomy look like for different individuals in a remote setting, whether they might be parents or caregivers, whether they might have an autoimmune disease, whether they might have a disability, whatever that looks like, being able to honor that. And then again, knowing who you have on your team so you can set them up for what high performance means and looks like for them, while also mitigating your own sense of bias of what you might think that definition should be.
Thank you for that insight. And I don't know if I should say good morning or good evening, but either way, we are happy to have you here because I know that we are joining from all over. So, good morning or good evening to wherever you are in the world. And thank you for that insight, Sienna. So, Jason, I'm going to come over to you. Same question, of course, your insights. What do you believe that are some of the key factors in building high performance teams that also prioritize employee well being? Because a lot of times, especially if it's remotely, or hybrid work, that it could be high performing that could lead to burnout. And burnout is a huge thing right now. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I agree with the energy level. I'm in central time zone, so I need a little pick me up at 2 o'clock. So thank you. I love the question. I believe that building a happy, high performing team is placing individuals in a role, in the right roles, right from the beginning, right from the outset. Too often people are placed in roles based on kind of what they've done historically from a hard skills perspective. Like, do you know this particular skill or that particular skill? But just because it's the same job doesn't necessarily mean that person will be happy. It depends on what the hiring team wants. It depends on the culture and the environment of that particular place. So from a personal perspective, take me for example. I held the same role as I have today at a previous company, and I had the same objectives, the same outcomes that I was supposed to attain as I do at Plum, and it was also a remote environment, just like we are at Plum. But there, I couldn't be innovative, which is something that comes very naturally to me. And I couldn't work with people in a way that kind of honored their unique skill sets and their personalities. Those are two of my kind of top talents. And as a result, I hated my job. I hated getting out of bed every day, even though I was a very high performer in that job. And at Plum, though, where at the very beginning I was matched using what Plum does from a psychometric data perspective, and those innate skills that come naturally to me, embracing diversity being one of them and innovation being another, I was a 97% match out of 100 for what Plum was looking for somebody in my job. So even though it's the same job, I hop out of bed every day at Plum. I close my laptop at the end of the day and, I'm celebrating that I had such a good day, again, doing the exact same job. So when you match people based on that data and you put them in roles which they can flourish, the outcome of that is they stay 3 years longer, and the business naturally thrives because that person who's doing those things that come naturally to them not only stay 3 years longer, they're 322% more productive, regardless if they're remote, flex, or in the office.
Oh my goodness, I love it. The transparency and the authenticity, Jason, that you just gave us, just about having a similar role in two different, companies. I'm sure people are like, is Plum hiring? I've never heard someone talk so highly, of a job. Like that sounds really, really great. And I loved your insight on placing people in the right roles from the beginning. I thought that was really, really paramount. So thank you for sharing. Kylie, I am coming to you. I really would love your insight on this question as well. Just as a reminder, what do you believe in your experience are some of the key factors in building a high performance team that also prioritizes employee well-being, especially for a lot of these companies and organizations who have a hybrid or remote work setting? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you so much. I just have to say, Jason and Sienna's answers are so perfect. So by no means I want to take away from either. I think there's so much overlap in the work that Power to Fly, Plum, and 15.5 are doing. Us three could probably get in a room and talk for like 24 hours straight. But I think from my position as someone in people leadership, I really think that the key to building those high performing teams, and this is something we think about often and is in our everyday vernacular at 15.5 of balancing high performance and high care for our people. But particularly in these remote and hybrid settings, we really believe it starts with creating a workplace where all of our employees feel genuinely connected to their work, their goals, and their peers. That has been really hard over the last few years. So at the heart of this is balancing those clear expectations with empathy. So we first do that by providing clarity and purpose. We believe those are essential. We think that people thrive when they know why their work matters and how their efforts contribute to the big picture. Setting those clear expectations for performance is foundational, but what's equally important is being open to feedback and adaptable to each team member's needs, as Sienna had said. Oops, sorry, I don't know what. Am I okay? Am I good?
Yep, you're good. We can hear you again. Yep, you're
Okay,
fine.
cool. So what I was saying was, for example, hybrid work allows us to consider how and where each person is at their best. This has shifted a lot, even for me personally. I'm expecting my first child. So I'm like, wow, I'm finally stepping into the shoes of a working parent and seeing how working from home has drastically changed what like my needs have been. So it's been a really cool journey, but I think encouraging employees to communicate their optimal work conditions shows we are invested in their success. And I've just seen that through and through. I think second is investing in growth and autonomy, another key point. For example, offering those targeted upskilling opportunities, whether that be through mentorship, workshops, or career coaching, it gives employees a path to grow even in our really fast-paced, often startup environments. And beyond that skill building, it also means allowing people to really own their roles, empowering them to take initiative while knowing they have the trust and support of their leadership teams. And then finally, without being super long-winded, I think building team rituals that bridge that virtual gap cannot be overlooked. This is something we're working through every day. I don't think we have the perfect solution yet, but I think we all know how important those water cooler conversations used to be, that in-office banter. So now more than ever, I think it's crucial to create those really intentional opportunities for connection and camaraderie. So that could be the regular team check-ins, the virtual coffee chats to keep those bonds alive. We're testing out a question Friday where we have a host each Friday come with a really fun question. We're thinking of bringing in some of our different ERGs and some of our Slack groups like Chefs of 15.5. So I think it's just really a blend of structure and empathy where our employees feel seen, supported, they're inspired to grow, and they're allowed to bring their best selves to work. And I think in today's landscape, that's the winning formula for high performance, at least for us and what we've defined it as.
Oh, yes, definitely. And I think that the beauty of different perspectives and thoughts are that what works for different companies can work for that different company, right? It's not a one size fits all. I love what you said about, making sure that you're balancing these high performance, requests or demands with empathy. Because I feel like that wasn't something that was always there. It was just like, just work, meet your sales quota, meet your data, do, versus taking consideration that Kylie's going to be a new mom. Congratulations. If you are a mom, or you have seen a child in your life before, just type mom in the comments. We want to make sure that Kylie knows that she is loved, she's appreciated, because that is definitely a new thing, right? To become a mom and also balance your career with a mom. So moms are going crazy in the comments right now. So I love it. And also, Kylie, you wrapped us up with talking about how to be innovative with these virtual water cooler conversations. Because you're right. At one point in time, it was being in person and definitely having those conversations. And how can you be innovative with making sure that people are connected in a virtual or hybrid kind of work environment? So, let's go ahead and keep it moving. And also, Jason, you definitely had a compliment here in the comments as well. Someone, I want to say it was Joe. Joe loves your stormtrooper helmet, FYI. So every time you do a
Thank
Zoom
you.
or something like that or do a meeting, keep that in the frame. So he really loved that. So let's
Nice.
go ahead. I want to really kind of, I'm going to stay with you, Kylie, for just a second, because I want to kind of shift it a little bit to a couple of conversations or questions I want to ask individually. So, Kylie, when it comes to companies effectively linking retention and engagement and upskilling to create a cohesive strategy that benefits both employees and their organization, what do you think that some of those best practice we can do to effectively link the retention and engagement to upskill and create a cohesive strategy that's beneficial to both employees and the organization? Kylie, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, I love it. This is all 15.5 and all about what our platform does. I think this is about recognizing that each of these elements amplifies the others when they're approached cohesively. So first, aligning upskilling opportunities within the skills of the organization and the needs that they have for the future is crucial. I think Jason really hit on this with like making sure that, you're hiring the right person for that role. I think when employees see that their growth areas are prioritized by the company, it really creates a sense of belonging and purpose. So linking retention, engagement, upskilling really starts with aligning that growth with the company's needs. I think the upskilling also has to be actionable and relevant. I think giving employees stretch projects or cross-functional opportunities lets them apply those new skills in really real ways, which of course boosts their confidence and gives them a sense of purpose. I mentioned this before, but I think transparency is also key. When employees understand how their growth supports the organization, it reinforces a shared purpose. And by personalizing that upskilling to match each person's career interests, we signal an investment to their future, which naturally drives that retention. So ultimately, when employees feel they're growing and contributing meaningfully, they're more likely to stay engaged and invested in the company's success. They know at that point they're not only building their skills for today's role, but also preparing for future roles, whether that be within the organization or not, but hopefully within, which has a positive impact again on both engagement and retention. I
Yeah.
think, go ahead.
No, 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 go. I'm just agreeing.
I was going to say, I think that we've also seen that engagement increases when people can apply those new skills in really meaningful ways. So upskilling to me doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It needs to be linked with real world applications. So giving employees those stretch projects or opportunities to collaborate with their cross-functional teams, that allows them to bring really fresh skills to the table and again, bring confidence to their roles. And then I think a crucial piece in connecting those strategies is again, communicate the why. If there's anything I've learned as a people leader, it's show the importance to them, communicate the why, and communicating the why behind upskilling and those development efforts. Employees want to know that their growth is mutually beneficial. So it not only opens up career paths for them, but strengthens the teams and supports the organization's goals. And then finally, I think common theme we'll hear today is taking a personalized approach. When we create those learning opportunities tailored to employees' career interests, we're signaling that we're invested in them as individuals. And that commitment to each person's potential encourages loyalty. It motivates those people to invest back in the organization. And in the end, when those people feel like they're growing and contributing meaningful ways, retention becomes the natural outcome. I could keep talking on this for hours, so I will leave it there, but I really appreciate the question. I love talking about this.
Yeah, no, great insight. And Sienna, as Kylie was talking, I just saw you nodding your head. So I'm going to invite you to jump on in on this conversation. And Jason, you can as well. But Sienna, is there anything that you want to add in regards to either what Kylie said, or just a question in general, about what I just had mentioned?
I mean, I love this. And also, Kylie, I was snapping 100%. And I think something that I don't want to add too much because I know that we have a lot to kind of dig into, but I think just something I want to double tap on what Kylie was saying was really being able to also understand and bridge the gap. And so I think oftentimes where organizations find themselves in a limbo is being able to say, we want to invest in individuals' career development, but how does this tie to our organizational goals? Right. And again, this goes back to the lens of, and I think Kylie communicated this in a wonderful way, but how are we really being able to tap into individuals' intrinsic motivation? And then also as leaders in an organization as well, being able to not just give cookie cutter training or upskilling opportunities, but really being able to create a conversation and hear what is it that people need. And I loved what Kylie shared as well, as really being able to integrate the sentiment of value, right? This isn't just taking a course or reading a resource or applying something into your role, but how are you really contributing into your own career development, but then also the value that that has in your own role in the department and in the organization, and recognizing that more consistently. Because I think, again, there's a lot of doing and a lot of things that we try to implement, but then also how do we recognize when individuals are actually putting in the work and taking that extra step to really invest in their future, which in turn will impact the organization, their engagement, and their retention.
Yeah, great insight. I think that you're exactly right, and it's so great to get different perspectives. So, Sienna, I appreciate that great piggyback, because I did see you kind of snapping over here. So I love that. Jason, I'm going to come back to you for a second, and I think this question is going to be very timely, because I think it not only aligns with what you said in the previous question, but I think it would make sense for where you are now. 80% of workers are reportedly looking for new opportunities in 2024 as well as 2025. What innovative approaches are you seeing in retaining top talent, and how does employee well-being kind of play into that?
I'm going to give you two answers on it, and a lot of it goes back to what were just mentioned in the previous question. And I want to look at it from both the human side of it, but even a scientific side, if I can. So there's this thing that's happening as the old guy in the room. It's like things feel different now, and there's a great writer out there. He's a futurist named Ira Wolf, and he's coined this thing called the pace paradox. And what the pace paradox means, and I'll get to my point here in a second, is the amount of change that happened from 2000 to 2004, that 5-year period of time, has already happened in 1 year this year. And if you look ahead to 2044, 20 years from now, the same amount of change that happened in 5 years will happen in a matter of weeks. So when we start talking about retention, we've got to get, as she mentioned, we've got to get to the why of this. So why are people looking for jobs? And a lot of it is we're not doing a good job, or employers aren't doing a good job on the retention side, because what we used to do a year ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, it doesn't work anymore. And people are either not feeling seen or they're feeling burned out. So it's the combination of those people feeling burned out, but also, again, from a data perspective, the half-life of skills now is about 2.5 years. So what that means is if an employer is looking for somebody with 5 years experience and the half-life of skills is only 2.5 years, when you start bringing people into your organization, you have to constantly be upskilling them, because the skills they know today are going to be irrelevant maybe as quick as 12 months from now. So this ladder progression that I went through in my career is really very passé now. It's much more about this lattice approach that you have to do. So that's the first half of the answer. The second half of the answer from a human perspective is people tend to quit leaders. They don't tend to quit their jobs. So you really have to build loyalty into the organization. You can't demand loyalty. So for me, the combination of consistency and honesty over a period of time equals loyalty. I'm very blessed from a Plum perspective. I have several employees here. We've been at 5 companies in a row. Several have been at 3 companies in a row. Several two companies in a row, because we can have open and honest conversations. I've always said, if you can go find your dream job, go find it. I'm not going to be mad. And just having that human level connection with people is honestly why people end up staying, because they can go find a job at any time somewhere else, but you can't leave and rebuild that loyalty that has taken so long to build. That's the thing people don't want to give up on, and that's the thing people really seek out in their career.
If you are bombarded on LinkedIn with resumes, Jason, I know exactly why. I mean, like, people are probably thinking in their mind, oh my goodness, Plum sounds amazing. You've given us so much information. Thank you so much for giving us some context around the pace paradox. I thought that was very interesting. And Trisha Sexton in the comments says it is spot on. And sometimes, it can be exhausting, trying to kind of keep up and constantly upskill your skill set. But also, too, if a job or an employer is looking for 5 years and you have 2.5 years of experience, right? So I appreciate that. Now, as you both were talking, I'm going to go off script just a little bit, because I think that as we are talking about retention and up leveling your skills, one thing that kind of came to mind as all 3 of you were talking, especially Jason, when you had just mentioned that before, how fast and quickly things are turning. It would be a change or a shift or a transition in 5 years. Is now happening in 12. I remember, like, soft skills were huge, and communication and public speaking was considered a soft skill. And I completely disagree with that, right? I think that if you want to either grow in your career or you want to retain some of the top talent, it's going to require that employers and organizations don't look at speaking and communicating as a soft skill, but as a superior skill. So I would love, Sienna, Kylie, and Jason to give your, your insight. Jason, we're going to start with you. I saw your hand. How do you feel about growing in a company and how communication skills, especially now that we're in a virtual and hybrid world, play a part in you being an effective employee? But also, too, people are losing people, like you said, not because of the job. It's because I don't like the way that manager or supervisor talked to me. I'm quitting because he needs polishing on how he communicates, right? Jason, thoughts?
Yeah, so the reason I raised my hand is what you just mentioned is what Plum does as a company, right? So we have coined the term durable skills and don't use soft skills anymore, because it's what gets you out of bed every day. You can build coping mechanisms about them, but if you're not somebody who embraces teamwork, which is a natural thing, I'm somebody, as an executive, I'm very low in teamwork, but I've had to get better at teamwork or people aren't going to like working for me, right? But if I did teamwork, if I had to go to a happy hour every day in my job, I wouldn't like working here and I'd probably go work somewhere else. So it's that combination, especially with the speed of change and how quickly hard skills are changing. The only way in the future we're going to be able to match people to jobs where they're going to be happy, fulfilled, and thrive, and where the business is going to do incredibly well, is by matching people to those durable skills. And it's not snake oil. It's a science that's been around for 70 years, 80 years. We do it at scale. And it's taking those innate abilities, those durable skills, the things that get people out of bed and happy every day, and matching them to those things on the roll. And what ends up happening from a hiring perspective is, historically, we've only used hard skills to hire people. I want to make sure Sienna has 5 years experience. You can type this many words a minute, et cetera, whatever it may be. But then when you're brought into the organization, and this has DE&I impacts, the people who are getting promoted for different reasons. They have grit, they're good in teamwork, so they're good communicators. So for the same reason we're bringing people into the organization is not the reason we're scaling them within the organization from a career perspective. And that disconnect is one of the main things that's broken.
Jason, I think that you were singing our song and doing our dance, right? I mean, like, everyone, I think that people were on camera, we can see facials, but if not, I think we're all snapping. Sienna, I'm going to come to you, then I'm going to go to Kylie, just so you know. Janine says former soft skills are now critical skills. Skek says we would call those soft skills essential skills. We know that Plum calls those skills durable skills. So I love that. Sienna, I saw you kind of over there doing a little bit of this. What do you think about, some of these skill sets in regards to soft versus superior or essential or durable?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Ironically enough, this is what keeps me up at night. But I think exactly, like, between Plum 15.5 and Power to Fly, we all have a very similar lens into skills. And, like, if we're thinking about it, we're moving into a skills-based economy, right? I don't like the word economy because we're talking about people, but we're moving into a skills-based revolution, right? And when we think about this at Power to Fly, we've actually created a framework that almost creates a trifecta, right? Technical skills, people skills, and business skills. So thinking about what are the technical skills that you need to do and excel in your role and potentially in other roles if some of those are transferable. People skills, how do you work well with people, right? So again, the snaps that Jason is getting, like, how are you being a great leader? How are you able to influence others? How are you able to really not just in alignment with your title, but also in alignment with the impact that you're making in an organization, and then the business skills. How can you tell story tell with data, right? How are you able to use negotiation to gain buy-in? And something that we've really learned and done over the years, both in the training that we do with all of our organizations as well as our online learning development platform, is really being able to say, how are we not just able to teach individual skills, but actually give them the resource and support to understand what are their skills and strengths that they currently have, right? What is their zone of genius? And then I was mentioning this in one of our previous talks, but as a team and as an organization, being able to look at our people as a puzzle, right? So again, Jason might be great at data-driven storytelling and Kylie might be great at gathering and analyzing that data. How can we match them together so that it's not just the skills through platforms or learning, but also a collective learning as well? And the last thing that I would just say is, like, as we think about skills, especially if you're someone, whether you're looking at hiring, engagement, retention, employee sentiment, which I also think is tied directly to all of these different things, looking at this through a lens of inclusion. So Jason, I loved what you were sharing in regards to, okay, the people who get promoted. How are we looking at that as an organization? Do the loudest people get celebrated and promoted? Do the people who give the quickest answer get celebrated and promoted, right? And so really being able to analyze and look at from a cultural perspective as well, how are we being conscious of what types of skills we celebrate, and how are we learning to become more inclusive, and what are the skills that are often overlooked? And I think through that lens as well, we're able to create more opportunity for not just a certain type of role or skills or even the trifecta stand out, but really being able to give individuals the path to what that growth looks like in the organization. And going back to what Kylie had shared previously, but tying that to value and impact, right? So your skill in being able to be a great project management doesn't just mean that an event goes smoothly. It means that you're able to increase the brand's reputation and our OKRs, because you know what I mean? So it's like driving that value and then also creating space for that acknowledgement as well, not just for a certain type of skills, but then also being able to, again, I just saw in the chat, right? Like bringing them all together. So we have technical, we have people, we have business, but in reality, in the Venn diagram, you're going to have some of those things that touch on all three. And that's really what will make you stand out in the workplace and really be able to help you really develop and, yeah, and increase your skills. Kylie, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Joe's comment in the chat really hit home for me because while I'm an extroverted person, I am a people leader and I'm a business partner that supports our entire organization of very, very different people. And by no means would I ever want someone to think that because they're introverted or their communication has, room for improvement means that you wouldn't be as successful. It's absolutely not what that means. What we're kind of saying is that these communication skills are being increasingly viewed as durable, but I have never seen more training courses on communication than in the last few years. Communication has changed so much since so many companies have gone remote. I mean, nonverbal communication is half of communication. So a lot of us are having to relearn how to communicate in these remote environments. This is my third webinar this week, but it's the first one where I've been able to see everyone. And when I was only seeing myself on the screen earlier this week, I truly felt like I like didn't know how to gauge if people were enjoying what I was saying, if they disagreed. Like I had no idea. So I think this is increasingly changing, but I think unlike the technical skills, which may become outdated, may change as technology evolves, strong communication skills, which doesn't have to mean extroverted, will remain essential and adaptable, and they're very learnable. Joe. So like, don't worry, there are so many courses. And what you kind of have to think about is that confrontation and having those critical conversations, or what we call it 15-5 clearing conversations, make you so much better at your job. And it really just takes practice. And know that you are absolutely not the only one. So I think that communication really does help employees succeed in these changing environments. it will help you build relationships, and it will help you effectively lead and collaborate. And that durability makes communication a core competency for any long-term career growth. But just know this is a muscle that we all have to flex and keep working at. So I'm encouraging you, um, keep at it. It's something we all have to keep practicing.
Yeah, and Joe, I saw your comment as well. Just so you know, 70% of the world are introverts or identify as introverts. So just because the extroverts like myself are louder doesn't mean that that's the norm, right? But 70% of the population identifies as introvert, and then you have the ambiverts who can kind of go either which way depending on, how they feel that day. So you are not alone. There are 70% or 69% of other people that are just like you. Sienna, as you were speaking, Michelle said that she loved your comment about zone of genius, as well as Amy Rowland is saying she loves this conversation, and she added a fire emoji, which means she's telling the truth, as well as Christy is talking about how her synergy, both yin and yang of the technical, the hard, and the interpersonal are both needed in the workplace. So the conversations keep going, and literally Jason says he's an introvert as well. See, again, matter of fact, let's make sure that Joe and Jason are all along. If you are also an introvert, just type me in the comments, right? We want to make sure here at Power to Fly, as we're having this conversation with Jason and Kylie and Sienna, that there's a mix of all of us. Some of us are introverts, some of us are extroverts, some of us are ambiverts, and that is okay. And you are right. And Sienna, as you were talking, just about different skill sets and learning how to tell a story. And it brought me back to when Jason was talking about how things are changing rapidly. I'm a huge lover of LinkedIn, and there has been jobs that it is now the chief storyteller. Like, that's a job now, right? So the idea of being able to communicate your brand value, your organization, being able to speak in a way that's clear, concise, and compelling. And back to what Kylie said, it's not just the words that come out of your mouth, it's a nonverbal communication as well. That's also imperative, within your job, within your workplace, right? So Amy says she is also an extrovert, but at work, but as soon as she walks out the door, she's always an introvert. So we're going to call you an ambivert, Amy. Thank you for sharing. All right, we have some great, if you are loving this conversation so far, just put great combo. I just want to make sure that what Jason is saying, Kylie and Sienna, like you're just enjoying the conversation. Great combo, says Joe. Great combo, says Christy and Heather. Great combo, says Heather and Sabine and Michelle and Kristen and Rachel. Thank you so much. Well, we still have some questions. Okay. So the next question I want to ask, Jason, I'm actually going to come back to you for a quick second, because I believe that you can add some really, really energy and just insight around this. Now, you have been successful in scaling organizations and driving revenue growth. What connections do you see between upskilling these employees and revenue growth? And I know we touched on that a little bit earlier, but I really want to kind of hyper focus on, if these employee skills are up leveled, how can that drive revenue growth, especially for some of the organizations who might be struggling and investing in professional development for the employees?
Yeah, I love the question. Thank you for coming to me. The first part for me is, let's make sure people are, from a psychometric data, from a durable skills, the organization and the role they're in is going to be a good fit. If not, they're going to feel burned out and they're going to leave anyway. But I always use kind of the same approach when I'm going in to scale organizations. So I have this methodology, but I also bring people with me. So I may bring people with me who we have this mutual respect and mutual loyalty for, but the job they're going to be doing may be a little off from what they know from a skills perspective. So for me, I want that loyalty and that trust and respect first when we bring people in. I even do it in the interview process for people I've never met before. Like, we try to build this human connection. Then when I bring them in, I know, hey, do I have to come beside them and kind of work on it together with them? Do I just need to do it first and have them watch it? Or is that something that comes so naturally to them, even on the hard skills perspective, that they can, just go run up the hill without me? And some of that is observation, some of that is history. But I'll just tell a story because I think it's important. We have somebody who runs sales ops for us. It's a very data-driven job. He's very, very introverted. We don't have somebody at the time who did demand gen. So we said, hey, it's a lot of the same skill sets. A lot of people who do demand gen are also introverts, and his brain's great. So let's start sending him to some classes. So now he can come in and help on that side of the house. Or you may have somebody who did transactional sales. That's another story. I have somebody, we've been 5 companies in a row. He started out as a very transactional sales rep. Now he's one of the best enterprise sales reps in the market because we took time to bring him along and teach him those things. And number one, hold him accountable, but number two, give him enough space where he can make the mistakes that somebody who's been doing it for 20 years took 20 years to make. And then we expect people to be perfect. We gave him time and space to make mistakes, and we embraced those mistakes and talked about the lessons we learned and why we won't do them again.
Yeah, thank you for that. That makes a lot of sense. I appreciate your insight, and I can tell from the conversation that people appreciate that insight as well. You know, Cian, I'm going to come to you, and I have a question, but I'm going to give it a little bit of spin because I believe that in the workplace right now, you know, it's a real thing. So the question that I have for you, Sienna, and Kylie, if you want to jump in on it, or I have another question for you, is, you know, as you're a person who has helped over 50 global organizations increase employee engagement, and what unique challenges do you see when trying to balance upskilling and retention, but primarily in workplaces where there are multi generations, right? So, for example, you are dealing with baby boomers, Gen Z, millennials. I mean, like, this is the first generation where you can literally have somebody in their 20s and someone in their 70s on the same team. And that 20-something-year-old can be the boss of the 70-year-old, or the 70-year-old could be the boss of the 25-year-old. So when it's time to upscale, it might not mean everyone needs the same thing. So with your experience, you know, with really helping over 50 global organizations increase employee engagement, what unique challenge do you see when trying to balance the upskills and retaining employees from multi generations? Because the 35-year-old could need something from the 65-year-old to excel in the workplace.
Yeah, I love this question. I think just for context, so 50 organizations, that's great. So within Power to Fly, we do training, and we do both L&D with organizations in a live format as well as with on-demand training. And the interesting thing, and like I just want to pull in a little bit of data, a lot of organizations do learning and development, a lot of organizations do training, and at the same time, 70% of employees feel like the L&D in their organization can be improved. So I think that that's something that's really important to sit with, is not just saying, how are we doing L&D to check off a box, but really being able to say, how are we doing it in a way that's intentional and that will actually get people invested. And so I know that we're talking a lot about employee engagement, but I think one of the core things that bridges employee engagement and employee retention is employee sentiment. How does an individual feel about working at that organization? And then we dive in a little bit deeper to understand the why. And it's actually interesting because we've seen over a 92% increase in employee sentiment after the trainings that we've done in the different organizations. A couple of different things that tie into that. One, again, being able to, and whether this is multi-generational or any other type of intersectionality of identities, but being able to recognize that there are diverse learning needs and diverse learning methods, right? So in the same way that we were talking about extrovert and introvert, some individuals might be visual learners. Some individuals might need or take more time to process what they're learning. Some individuals might really thrive when it's in conversation or storytelling, and others might need to read a text, learn, and then apply it. So really being able to do a little bit of an audit and understanding, where's your company at? And again, we say company or organization, bring that down to the departmental level, bring that down to the team level, bring that down to the individual level. While it sounds like a lot, I promise you it's worth it. But being able to really have that understanding and having that conversation of what is the type of upskilling that will best serve you? And then again, how can we now that tie that to the organizational needs? And so, Jason, I love the example that you had shared of being able to also recognize transferable skills as well, and just how important that is in regards to career growth. And so I think another part of that as well is, again, not just having L&D or trainings or upskilling be an initiative, because I think that's where a lot of organizations miss the mark of, it's another thing that we have to do, but we're putting that on everyone's plate as they have to hit their KPIs, and as we're coming around the holiday season, and as they might be becoming new parents, et cetera, or they might be dealing with, it's fine. There was a big storm in Valencia, which is about an hour away from me. And so like a lot of natural weather disasters or things that are going on in the world, but take this course at the same time, right? So I think also being able to have this sentiment of, number one, being intentional of not just having it be something that checks off the box, but then also being able to be inclusive in regards to how you roll out the initiatives that you're doing and how are you tying that to what really matters to other individuals. And the last thing that I would say to specifically speak on the multi-generational aspect, also being able to understand how are you maintaining a sentiment of employee and of connection and engagement. So yes, my manager might be 75. What do I have to learn from her? Because I'm sure that she has so much, she's a she in my world. She has so much information or knowledge or wisdom. And in the same way, how are we creating a sentiment of collective learning where she might be able to learn from me in regards, I'm not 25, but she can be able to learn from me in a lot of different ways in regards to what I might be a little bit more. And so I think in addition to leaders and organizations really integrating either the platforms or the resources, something that I really recommend and that I actually do on my teams is how are we leaning into collective learning, right? A great example, we were having a conversation on Tuesday actually with my team, and we were talking about, I know AI is a hot topic, I won't get into it that much, but how are we all using this in our day-to-day work? How is this implementing or integrating the efficiency that we have? How are we all continuously learning from another? And whether it's about a specific topic or creating and integrating time where individuals are talking about what they're learning, what they're doing, what they're reading on a more consistent basis. So it creates this sentiment of not just learning or upskilling from one person or one individual or one perspective, but doing it in a more collective way. And when I've seen it done right, I just always love shouting out this company. I won't use a name, but they actually did training and upskilling with us for their entire organization over, I want to say, for the last 3 years. And what I saw really worked was being able to have them be very strategic about who needs what and then how are they rolling them through, and then also having that overlap. And that actually led to, again, over 90% of employee sentiment. It also led to them then being able to win one of the best companies with belonging at work awards. And so we were able to really see when you're able to integrate some of those best practices across generations, across locations globally, across time in the company, it's really able to have that impact where it's not just being like, we have to do L&D because it's a checklist, but really being able to say, I know that my organization is invested in my growth, and I know that what I'm learning is going to be able to not just help me elevate my own career, but help elevate my work, which in turn will elevate the company's outcomes. And then going back to Jason's question, the revenue as well, right? Revenue, success across the board.
You know, Sienna, I think something that you mentioned, and I feel like has been a theme between just this whole idea of retaining employees and keeping top talent, especially whether it's multi-generational, just makes me think of empathy and respect really come up. Like, are you respecting the employees that you work with? You know, I remember when I got my first full-time job, I think I was like 26 and I inherited this team. And I remember they were all looking like, is it bring your daughter to work day? Because I was fresh out of college, right? And they were clearly, been in this job for a long time. And I remember there was this woman, I never forget her. Her name is Miss Esther. I was calling her Miss Esther in meetings because the ancestors would not let me call this woman who was clearly my grandmother's age, by her first name. Like it just wasn't. And because of that, and everyone saw me, they respected me because I respected them. I think that if you are leading these multi-generational teams, you come in like, you don't know how to work a cell phone or you don't know how to use Chat GPT. Like, what's wrong with you? Get with the times versus let me show you how. It goes a long way. So I hear it kind of echo with Jason and Kylie in your answer as well, Sienna. It's about empathy and respect. So Kylie, I'm going to come to you with this same question because I saw you put that this question was fire. So I would love for you to answer this question as well in regards to when you are looking at, kind of really building out certain things and really connecting people and retaining them and, really making sure that they have what they need to exceed in their career. How do you do that when there's multi generations, when you're looking at baby boomers and Gen Z and millennials, new moms? How does that work, right?
Yeah, this is spot on. And I was having such a reaction to Sienna because I obviously am more HR people side, but absolutely have an L&D arm as a part of us. But when you said the L&D to-do list, I'm like, dang it, it's everywhere. We use the HR homework, and it's like, how do we avoid this just being HR homework? And again, sharing the why, and like, this is so important. So we've iterated, we've tested, we've taken feedback, and kind of what's working for us is we're awarding it. So when we're doing these trainings, it's like, it's an award, and it's a privilege that we're like, we have these trainings and we see you as someone that's incredibly high potential. So we're awarding this. But I think to avoid that L&D to-do list, to avoid that HR homework, and for it to feel important to them, it's also really about like prioritization and integration. So at 15.5, we really focus on the targeted skill areas that align with both our goals as a company and the individual career paths. That way, it really keeps the learning relevant, and then it also seems really manageable. So our platform and itself enables micro learning. So those are all on demand trainings. They're bite-sized sessions. They fit into employees' workflows. They make upskilling feel super accessible and not overwhelming, says the feedback. But it also has a built-in focus on feedback and growth conversations. And 15.5 empowers employees to track their progress and celebrate those wins along the way. So we've talked a lot about with our product team, do we gamify this, or how do we make it so it feels again like that award, or I'm really celebrating everything that I've done. And we've seen a lot of success across multi-generations with that. I think like the competitive nature is something that we see a ton at our company, but I think ultimately just fostering that culture of continuous learning and really show like where progress is valued. I think Jason had said this, over perfection. That is where we're able to ensure that upskilling becomes this inspiring part of work rather than an added stressor.
Oh my goodness. I wish we had more time. Not only is the chat box on fire, I think that Jason and Kylie and Sienna gave us such great information. If you agree, just go ahead and type in the comments more, right? Because sometimes we just need a little bit more time. But I definitely want to thank Jason and Kylie and Sienna for all the words of wisdom that they shared with us today. And I know that if we had more time, you have more valuable insight to share with us. For all of you who are joining us on this Power to Fly conversation, we thank you for giving us your time and your attention. I know that we have some closing remarks and slides that we want to share with you, but more importantly, I know that it was dropped in the chat box. If you want to connect with myself, Jason, Kylie, or Sienna, our LinkedIn is in the chat. Go ahead and do that if you want to continue the conversation. I'm sure that all of you are open to connecting beyond today's conversation. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Power to Fly as we have some awesome and amazing closeout slides and announcements. But more importantly, for everyone who joined us today, thank you so much. And a special thank you again to Jason, Kylie, and Sienna for this awesome and amazing conversation. So, a couple things that you want to learn and follow through in regards to our conversation today. There was a couple of takeaways that I want you to make sure that you know, more importantly, that you write down. Number one, engaging, retaining, and succeeding is the path to peak performance. We talked about high performance teams. We talked about integrated strategy. We talked about talent retention and continuous learning. All of these are what's needed and necessary in our ever evolving workplace, whether you are still going into the office, but more importantly, for the majority of you who are hybrid or virtual, these are some of the key takeaways that you want to keep top of mind as you are continuing to do your job, but more importantly, how you can not only, advance, but also retain some of the people that you are working with. So Jason says, before this is over, he said he'd like to welcome everyone to take their Plum profile to learn more about your durable skill sets. And Jason had put that in the chat. So if you want to know what your durable skill sets are, Jason has an amazing tool. So if you can do me a favor, and if you can go ahead and click that link. Also, too, Jason, I know that you had mentioned this Plum profile to learn. I want to open it back up really quickly. Kylie or Sienna, did you have any last minute quick words that you wanted to share, or do you want some of our audience member to do before we love them and leave them? Kylie, I want to go with you first. Any assessments, tools, or things you want to share, or final words of wisdom?
My gosh, I have so much, but I'll be quick. I was telling the crew at the very beginning, I'm the least salesy ever. I'm a people human through and through. So I was able to get free registration to our biggest event of the year. It's on my background, Thrive. It's completely accessible to anyone, HR leaders, but we would love to see you there. I'll put the registration in the link. Like I said, completely free. We'll be talking a lot about everything we discussed today and more on strategic HR. We've got some incredible hosts. So would love to see you all there, and I'll post the link.
And tell us again, what days, I know we can see it, but I know that I'm trying to cater to our audio learners as well, right? Not just our visuals. What date and what time is the Thrive event?
Yes, November 12th and 13th. We'll start around 10 a.m. Eastern and go to about 2 p.m. Eastern both days. So about half days, and you do not have to join for the whole thing. I can post the link, but if you go to our website, it'll show you the whole schedule. So if there's certain ones you want to pop in and out of, we'd love to have you.
Okay, awesome. So November 12th and 13th, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and if there is a link, I know Kylie's link is there, but if there's a link to Thrive as well, if you can drop that in the chat, I think that would be beneficial for our audience as well. All right, Miss Sienna, I am coming to you. Any final words of wisdom, or is there one thing that you want everyone to take away from this conversation? Go ahead, the floor is yours.
I mean, I'm honored I got a Miss title. I feel I feel like your previous colleague. I love this. No, I just want to invite all of you, and I'll drop this in the chat as well, to take our skills quiz. So I know that I spoke a little bit about the technical, the people, and the business skills, and I just want to invite all of you as individuals, but then also as leaders, to take out the skills quiz. You'll also learn more about our skills meter, which is our skill meter, which will allow for you to really be able to do a deep dive of an audit, to be able to understand not just what are the skills that you do have, but what are the skills that you do need to be able to grow. And so I just want to invite you to all do the do the HR homework, like Kylie was saying, but to really do that homework, to also have us lead first in that investment of continuing to understand what that looks like and where we can continue to upskill, and then how can we bring our learning and our lessons back to our team. And something to take away from this conversation, I just want everyone to feel empowered as well, to start thinking about how can we engage and retain the individuals that we have within our organization, and what is one small step or one small thing that you can take from today's conversation to then bring back into your work and your workplace as well.
Okay, well, listen, I usually don't speak for everyone, but I'm going to go ahead and jump out on a limb here. I feel empowered, right? So if you feel empowered by Jason and Kylie and Sienna's conversation, type empowered in the comments. And they not only gave us a rich conversation, they always also gave us some HR homework that I think we would actually enjoy. Sienna talked about the skills quiz. Jason talked about filling out your Plum profile. That link is actually in the chat box. And then Kylie also invited us to Thrive, which is happening on November 12th and 13th. So I feel like we are empowered, we are inspired, we are enriched, we are educated by this awesome and amazing conversation. So again, thank you so much for that conversation. Now, before we go ahead and pass it over, I want to make sure there's no more housekeeping. I know that we already shared kind of one thing that we are taking away. If it is not, thank you so much. Rachel said, Quinn, you're a great host. I appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and pass it back over to the Power to Fly team, because I do know that we have one more conversation that is going to make sure that you continue your learning. So thank you so much again to Jason, Sienna, and Kylie. And thank you to all of you for allowing me to serve as your moderator for this awesome and amazing conversation.
Thank you so much, Quinn. And thank you to Jason, Kylie, and Sienna for an amazing panel. I feel empowered. So thank you all so much.